Convention, and my name is Jay Horrigan. I am not joined this time by Dr. Pandora Carlucci, who is on assignment in California or somewhere. Right now, we'd ask Pandora how she is doing, and she would say fine. So that was very nice of her. We are joined, though, by our three faith leaders that we're always fortunate to have here anytime we're able to do the show. And we'll start off with Reverend Doreen Oughton. Am I pronouncing that right?
You are, Jay. Yes,
Thanks,
that's
Rabbi.
correct.
He gave me a lesson before we started recording.
Right, like ought not. Yes.
Okay. Just how are things with you, your congregation? Any news, anything coming up?
Yeah, things are really interesting and going well, I think, at Franklin Federated. Our biggest news is that we have opened a thrift shop, and I think it will really meet a community need and be a good thing for the church as well. It is open on Wednesdays from 4 to 7 and Saturdays from 9 to 1. Once the farmers market opens, we're hoping to be open during that time also and get some of the traffic there. We're thinking about Holy Week ahead, and, you know, the temple at Saim is going to be using our space on Monday, Thursday, and so we were thinking about what we might do, and we might have a house service at the parsonage. So just keeping it a little bit smaller and more that feel of a house church. So I'm really excited about that. And I do have to just remind you, Jay, that we're no longer a priest or rabbi and a minister. Again, I don't mind if people want to think of me as a goddess, but I am not a priest.
We can change. We certainly can change the name to a goddess, a minister, and a rabbi. Walk in.
But I think we came up with Franklin Faith Forum. Yes.
Is that okay?
That's the new name.
That's the name we said. Okay, Franklin Faith Forum. You'll. It's right on the top of my outline. So if I had read that, Rabbi, so that should explain a lot of it. Yeah, I missed that. Okay, good, awesome. That's great about the thrift shop.
Yes,
that's really
Thrifty
neat.
Threads, I think they're calling it.
Next, we'll go on to Rabbi Tom Albert and check in with the rabbi.
How are you, Jay?
I am doing great, thanks.
Good. So there is a gigantic amount going on here at Temple at Chaim. So let me start on a personal note. I spent a week since we last met in Israel at the convention of the Central Conference of American Rabbis. It's a fascinating time to be in Israel, and I've put together some notes about it, which I have put into a blog, and I will send out to the congregation and to everybody else soon. But it was amazing. Meanwhile, at the temple this past Monday night, we celebrated Purim, and as following a tradition, a centuries-old tradition, we did a play based on the Purim concept. This one focused as
what? I don't know how to use it if I had it.
In case you wanted to just try to view things digitally or
You'll have to give me a half-hour lesson.
We're on. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'll call tonight's meeting of the Open Space and Recreation Plan to order. Just before we get started, a quick announcement that we're continuing to operate in a hybrid format. Anyone who'd like to participate is welcome to do so by coming into town chambers or to participate via the Zoom app. You can do so by either going to the Zoom application and using the meeting number 882-2960 0195, or dialing the phone number 929-205-6099. And again, the ID number is 882-2960 0195. We would love to hear from you. Any comments either by Zoom or in person are welcome. Just want to take a quick opportunity to remind folks that you're also able to submit comments, questions, feedback on the Open Space and Recreation Plan through the conservation website, which is franklinma.gov/conservation. Once you go to that website, you'll see a link to the OSRP. Click on that and you can submit comments through that link. You can see past meeting materials, recordings of prior meetings, and just a refresher for anyone tuning in for the first time. We've been holding these meetings every couple of weeks for the past several months now. Have had a lot of great discussions, and the topic is Delcart and Beaver Pond. And we're trying to structure these as, open conversations. We'd love to hear from you. So I think without further ado, we'll throw it to Brika and Ryan.
Thank you, Pat. Can you guys hear me okay? On the mic? Okay. So give you a quick update about Beaver Pond. Well, I shouldn't say quick. There's a lot to talk about with Beaver Pond. There's a lot of history, but I'll try to be as succinct as I can with the dates and whatnot. Sometime back in the 1970s, they created, this is long before I was an employee of the town. They created a bathing beach down at, and they call it Walter Chilson Beach. And it was sometime, I want to say like in the mid-70s. They had the town pool, which is down the sculpture park, but they wanted a bathing beach where, residents could swim. So they created that sandy area that you see now. It was a gravel parking lot. There was a small soccer field in the front. I believe Tri-County at the time had built a concession stand that was about where the 50-yard line of the turf field is now. And we had lifeguards on duty. Usually middle of June through the middle of August, we would have lifeguards. We would have a gate guard at the front collecting beach fees. I think it was $7 a day for residents to go to the beach, or $75 for the whole summer for the whole family. And we would sell season passes. We'd have swimming lessons. They were Red Cross swimming lessons. We'd typically staff it with about 13 lifeguards, and we'd have one water safety instructor. I want to say maybe 8 or 10 years ago, we stopped staffing it with lifeguards. It's just really hard to find good lifeguards. You've got the YMCA that has a pool. You've got the Adirondack that has a pool. At the time, we had the Boston Sports Club that had a pool. And a lot of people were using, they would have a membership or whatnot. And Beaver Pond really was only open for, 8 to 10 weeks a year. And we'd have to close if it was rain. Anyway, it was really just challenging to try to find quality lifeguards. They were getting expensive. And beaches are not a profitable business. You lose money. After staffing, all the cleaning that goes into it, trash recycling, all that stuff. So we got out of that, and now it still operates as a beach for those same times of the year, June 20th to August 20th, but it's swim at your own risk. We do have a gate guard that checks residency to make sure that whoever is coming into the park is a Franklin resident, but there are no lifeguards on duty at this time. So every week we do a beach test where we go down and we test it for fecal coliform, which is E. coli basically, and we get a result back within 24 hours, and we post it on our recreation webpage. So anybody that goes to the recreation department webpage, there's a whole page there that's dedicated to Beaver Pond, Chilson Beach. Sometime I think it was 2001, maybe it started in 2000, we created a plan to put in a turf field there. They had a grass, as I mentioned, they had a grass field in the front that was really choppy, a lot of potholes and ruts and whatnot. And the idea was to try to come up with a premium turf field where, we could use it for high school athletics as well as youth sports. Right now, we house the boys lacrosse down there. We have our flag football program in the fall. We have Franklin High School field hockey down there, and the boys youth lacrosse also uses it. And then various other activities. I mean, people go down there and do strength and conditioning, and I see people walking the turf field. Gets used quite a bit, and we have Musco lighting there. We all control it right by my phone or by a program, which is great. And just recently, as you guys probably know, we started an expansion project where we're working on putting in a lacrosse wall, which is a rebound wall where kids can play catch with themselves basically, and that has turf around it. And then we put in a teenage obstacle course, which is 12 activities, which finishes what they call a victory wall. It's a 16-foot high wall that kids have to try to get a running start and climb up. It's we're actually starting a class down there, a little Ninja Warrior class next week for kids that are 12 and up, and see how it goes. We have a strength and conditioning coach, and we'll bring down some kettlebells and jump ropes and whatnot, and try to do that. And just recently, we're working on doing, finishing the turf from the obstacle course over. The Vendetti's donated a beautiful playground, $50,000 donation. And then just recently, they made another donation of $100,000 to pay for the turf that's gonna go around all the obstacles there. And it's handicap compliant, so it meets all the ADA requirements. It meets all the fall height, ASTMF fall heights, so if somebody falls off the slide, it's got a 2.5-inch shock pad underneath the turf so that it can absorb it. We're also putting in a small grass practice field back there, which is all, the irrigation's all in. We just put the seed down. Our DPW does a terrific job with the maintenance, and that'll be for like practice space for the people that are on the turf. A lot of times when people are on the turf and you got a game right after it, there's no place for them to warm up and stretch and get ready. So this allows at least some grass space off to the side. What else we got down there? There's some walking trails out back that are really nice. Some beautiful birds, like some real rare species that you don't see. I know there's a least bittern back there that I've heard was spotted, so that's pretty nice. If you walk all the way in the back there, the Public Works, and there's a couple wells back there, but there's, you know, you can get down pretty far in the back. I don't know if you can really make it all the way around the pond, but if you walk all the way around to the right, it starts to get a little muddy there in that area, but it would be nice someday to be able to, you know, put in some kind of a boardwalk where people could walk around the whole pond and exercise. But yeah, other than that, that's basically the gist of Beaver Pond and Chilson Beach. We do have a canoe launch too that's down there, so people bring their boats down. Non-motorized boats can launch, which is nice. We've also talked about maybe getting some paddle, like kayaks, and they have these self-service kiosks that you can put in, and they have four and four, so you get 8 kayaks, and people can use a QR code to unlock it, and they can rent it for however long they want, an hour. You charge them by the hour. And it's got paddles, it's got a life preserver and a little kayak in it, so families could go down and paddle around if they wanted to. So we're toying around with that idea. It's a little bit of an investment. I think it's a $10,000 investment for the town to get those kiosks in. And then they split the profits with us 50-50. And it's great because there's no maintenance for us. They do all the maintaining. They come and check the preservers, they check the kayaks, the paddles, to make sure they're all there. So we're looking at that as well. But yeah, any questions you may have?
Right, what's the lifespan of the turf there?
I mean, we just replaced it, I think 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that was 15 or 16 years it lasted. We probably could have got another couple of years out of it, but they do this testing, which is called GMAX testing, which is basically you take a computerized person's head and you drop it from head height, and it registers a reading on there of how firm the surfaces. And there were some spots in the turf that were coming up pretty firm, so we did some mediation, you know, fixing that, fluffing it up with more, you know, pellets and sand. But after a while, you really just need to replace the carpet, because the pile height on just like your carpet at home, if you wear it out, you're gonna lose it all. But the pile height was 2.5 inches, and over time it starts to degrade a little bit, and you lose a little bit of the pile height.
It was recently approved at a public hearing. You were at one of them, but for the rest of the commissioners, when Brooke brought in that cut of turf,
Oh, yeah.
that okay, were you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about
so that's that. There are beavers there.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
There's beavers there.
Anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer anything about Beaver Pond.
Yeah, that's walking around the pond sounds awesome. I always thought maybe there might be a problem because of the drinking water wells, but you think that would be okay?
Yeah, the drinking water wells are a little bit closer down there. There is I think there's a building back there that DPW maintains as well. But yeah, I mean, it goes all the way around it as it is now. There's a lot of dirt bikes that ride back there and try to come across, you know, they come on the beach once in a while. But it goes all the way, almost like 3/4 of the way around. And then especially this time of year where it's wet, it's real muddy in that area, so you really can't get through. But you know, it would be nice if we could complete it and have you know, people be able to walk around the whole park.
That'd be great, thanks.
Yeah.
Is all of that area, if, you know, we were to think about a boardwalk, and obviously, you know, there would be a lot of kind of wetland and other concerns as well, but is all of that town-controlled land, or is some of it Army Corps?
I That's a good question, Pat. I'm not 100% sure on that. I believe, when I look at an abutters list of Beaver Pond, it seems to be a little bit of National Grid, a lot of Town of Franklin, and Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, and then DOT for 495,
Yep.
so they have their own right-of-way. I only know that because I got a complaint about dirt bikers, and then I followed it up the chain with DCR, and they sent me to DOT, so.
Yeah. I mean, you could really, if you wanted to put in a boardwalk, they have floating boardwalks that really, you know, they're pretty gentle on the environment, they're like the one we have down at Delcart. You could put it in that area.
Well, and I think too, like, I mean, the boardwalk, you'll see all over the place where it almost dead ends, and you just, you know, even if it wasn't a full circle around the pond, just having something a little bit more structured, I think that would, you know, help improve access for folks, especially during wet times of the year.
I mean, there's some trails that are still there from years ago. If you go into the second entrance of Beaver Pond where some people park, we have a couple containers over there. There's a trail that actually kind of snakes through the woods, and it links up all the way in the back, almost like halfway down the pond, and really nice there in the fall. It's a great walk, so give it a try.
Is that where, if we connected the SNET trail to the town, does it go right through there?
No, the SNET doesn't quite get that far. I mean, if you go all the way out back behind Beaver Pond, there's a little path, dirt bike path that goes up to 495, and then it kind of comes back, and you can go underneath 495, and that's the SNET. So it is further back, though. It doesn't actually come as far as Beaver Pond.
I mean, the path that it would take if we connected it with town.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to park on the Grove Street SNET parking lot
Yeah.
and walk the opposite direction of where
Yeah.
everybody else walks, it goes underneath. It actually goes right downtown Franklin.
Yeah.
There's a rail there, and right as you get underneath the 495 bridge, if you kind of take a left, there's a steep hill that goes down, and then that connects to Beaver Pond in the back.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? No.
One
I
last
noticed some
question.
folks are in our audience. Any questions? You know, happy to. This isn't just about us. So, if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to step up to the microphone.
We have two, Pat.
Ed Szymanski, 529 Pleasant Street. I just wanted to, since you were talking about making it accessible to walk all the way around, because I walk down there a lot.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because I'm a nature photographer, so and look, I want to find that least bidder, and I haven't seen it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Great.
But you can't walk, if you go to the left of the main pond, down the road there that comes down to the paved road at the end, and you can, if you go to the left, there's one body of water. If you go to the right, there's a gate. There's a locked gate. So,
All the way across?
yeah,
Okay.
that's so nobody can drive down to the DPW building. But that would preclude people from being able to walk all the way around the pond that way. So I don't know if there'd be any plan for,
Yeah.
at least for, it, and it's got little pieces of fence on the side, so you can step through it. But maybe if people could go around the side, as long as you couldn't drive a car down,
Yeah.
that would
probably-
make it a little bit more accessible.
I'm sure that was installed because DPW doesn't want anybody messing around with their building back there.
Yeah.
If we got access around the whole pond, we could probably put up some bollards so that vehicles couldn't get back there.
Right.
People could still walk it.
Okay, that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
I know there's nice restrooms there. How often are they open?
Well, that's a touchy subject. I'd like to have them open all the time, but right now they're key operated. So we'd love to put on timers where they unlock in the morning and automatically close at night. We're working on getting some technology in there that can do that. We just brought in, Mike D'Angelo, our facilities director, had a conduit brought into the building. We just need to get it hooked up with our IT people and with the facilities. But once we have that capability, we'll be able to put in some timers to keep the building open. But right now, it's basically whoever permits the field, if it's youth lacrosse or youth soccer, we give them the code, and there's a key right there, and they unlock them for their events. So we have them unlocked for all of our events. And a lot of times, if I'm driving by, I'll just unlock them in the morning in the summertime when people are there, and then just lock it up at night. But it's really dependent on who has the key at this point. But it'd be nice to get them unlocked electronically. All the bathrooms in town, really. Fletcher Field, I mean, King Street. Love to have them all open. And a lot of people don't understand that we don't have like just a key person that drives around all the fields and unlocks all the bathrooms and locks them up every night. It's really dependent on who's permitting the field.
Thanks.
I got nothing.
Okay, well, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
yep.
You can stay for Delcart if you want.
Sure.
Okay. Not to sign you up for more. So next on the list is Delcart. You all have far more knowledge about Delcart than I do, so I thought everybody here and in attendance, we have previous Concom members, they can speak about Delcart. And the only two comments that I had were the forest stewardship plan and the biodiversity project. But the forest stewardship plan specifically has identified certain things that could happen at Delcart in the next 10 years, if anybody was interested in hearing that. So, stemming from your nods, I'll just continue. So the forest stewardship plan has been approved by DCR Mike Downey, and there are a handful, maybe 10, quickly scrolling, action items that the forester we consulted with chose or identified that we could take to meet our management goals. Those being promote biological diversity, enhance habitat for birds, enhance habitat for small mammals, enhance habitat for large mammals, improve access for walking, skiing, and recreation, preserve or improve scenic beauty, protect water quality, protect unique special cultural areas. Those are all listed as high priority landowner goals. For medium priority landowner goals, there were maintain privacy or enhance, but in the event we can't plant more trees, it's pretty forested in the areas that it is. I chose maintaining. And then improving fishing. And then we did not choose enhancing the quality or quantity of timber products, generating immediate income, generating long-term income, producing firewood, deferring or defraying taxes, and green certification. So I figure everybody could agree with those, right?
Mm-hmm. Could you say a little more about the privacy? What's that mean?
The privacy would more, the way that when I asked and the way that it was explained to me, it's maintaining privacy from external parcels. So either seeing other houses while you're there or houses seeing in, and for the most part it's
Thanks.
pretty private, and you wouldn't be able to tell that the rail is there until it goes by. So
So when you talk about enhancing fishing, you're talking about stocking it?
no, not necessarily stalking, but the way that I looked at that was from a habitat management perspective. I think we know I'm a little bit more full circle, sort of the full ecological function. That's usually my lens. So instead of just, why would we stock fish if the habitat doesn't support it, or if, we're treating it because it has invasive species, that's putting the cart before the horse.
I mean, that kind of dovetails, well, that's Spruce Pond. But we've had some conversations about the chemical treatment of that water.
Right, yep.
And where we're going with that.
Right, which neither here nor there, but a contract should be coming in that we should review at a later date. So that is something, for Delcart, we have been treating it, the town has been treating it with Conservation Commission approval since 2016. Original permit was approved in 2015, and that was to combat water chestnut and milfoil. Milfoil is all but eradicated. Water chestnut is persisting. Water chestnut seeds will actually persist in substrate for up to 12 years. So we're not even there yet from when we started treating. So management practices that the forester identified for Delcart as a whole, more from a forestry, passive recreation standpoint, is timber stand improvement. So I'm just going to read right off their list, and feel free to cut me off if you have questions. So timber stand improvement is defined as diversifying stand structure by creating small single tree canopy openings to regenerate understory veg and stimulate growth in crop trees. They do suggest girdling selected trees to create snags for wildlife habitat. They also suggest felling occasional suppressed and small diameter trees in these openings to create coarse woody debris and to provide nurse logs for seedlings. Resulting cut material will not be removed but left on site for nutrient cycling. They also suggest for timber stand improvement that using a single tree selection method to cut and girdle poor quality canopy trees to release mid-story white pine and improve wildlife habitat through the creation of snags, as I mentioned. Increasing the level of coarse woody debris on forest floor by felling select trailside hazard trees, creating slash piles as habitat structures. They also have trail improvements, which I think we all know, listed as one of their goals. So they wrote evaluating on-site trail conditions and target repairs as necessary to meet landowner objects for public access. Trail braiding, tread repairs, and water control should be addressed. Rerouting of trails away from sensitive pond edges, which I am a fan of, and installing punch-in bridges for stream crossings should be explored. Refresh trailblazing and create wayside maps and interpretive panels to educate public on management practices and or site history. Trail closure, so they suggest evaluating redundant trails or those leading to private property and reducing trail density in stand 1. So they identified different stands. They segmented out Delcart so they didn't look at it as a whole. By targeting closures and establishing more obvious corridors. Invasive management, so they mentioned management of invasive species through monitoring, hand pulling, mechanical treatment, and targeted herbicide application as needed. This comment is directed at the like the purple loosestrife, what they could see when they were out there, a lot of the glossy buckthorn, the phragmites in the back, so not necessarily the water chestnut and milfoil that the town, we've been doing within the water, but at the same point they left it broad enough. Boundary maintenance, so they suggest researching, locating, and marking property boundaries. Road maintenance for stormwater runoff off of Pleasant Street. Installing water control structures and drainage to direct stormwater runoff before entering the south pond and to maintain long-term integrity of the road surface. And then access control, so they suggested we coordinate with the MBTA to control unauthorized public access leading to and from the railroad line.
Any thought about access to that condominium development that's going next door the church?
So they did come in to tech review, and when they came in front of the Conservation Commission, they mentioned potential trails, 237 Pleasant Street, the church, but they haven't officially filed, so nothing, they can't do it yet legally. They haven't finished anyways through their entire permitting process with other boards. But I do think it's still on their radar. So I think that would be great. And if you recall, your chair and all of you wrote a letter highlighting that it would be great if there was trails and public parking, I think, right, Pat?
Yeah, I think, and this is apart from the forestry plan, mostly apart, I suppose. But I think one of the big challenges with Delcart is that there's really not a lot of parking. And so, during high volume times or I think, we don't want to be in a position where people are getting turned away from Delcart because they can't park there. And so, but there's also the challenge of, there's not a readily available place to put in new parking. So I think there would be a good synergy if that's something that the 237 project would be open to, and that's a little bit of a separate conversation, but I think if through the permitting process that's something that they are open to, we would love to work with them on providing, use of parking spaces and connecting that through new trails into, the existing trail network.
There is a second entrance to Delcart. It's a little small parking area. Could that be expanded for,
Yeah, so that parking lot, to me, with a conservation hat on, is easier to permit and expand than the other parking lot.
It's not as close to the water.
Yes, yeah. There are wetlands behind, so I'm gonna get on a PSA here for a second, but the unvegetated turnaround spot at Delcart at the parking lot, that's actually should just be for town staff. So that parking is so the trash truck can get to it. There's a basin, a rain garden right there. There's a stormwater basin. So that turnaround spot, and I know a lot of people park in it, but really, if people could avoid parking right next to the trash can, that would just be great. But anyways, my point is that right behind that turnaround is all wet.
yes,
So
Is there signage at that second entrance? I can't even remember.
there's some sign.
There
there's a
is,
sign, but not overflow
Yeah.
parking. Like, I don't think it's called out as well as
right,
it could be.
I think we could certainly do with more signage at the primary parking lot saying overflow parking is 500 feet this way,
Yeah.
something like that.
I saw
Would we
some
have
cars
capability to do like a crushed gravel sort of path up along the road connecting the two parking lots? Because my thought is looking at families with young children that might not be able to park at the other parking lot. I know the path goes that way, but you wouldn't be able to get a stroller down the hill and across the path there. So that might provide a different point of access for young families.
And I think just looking at it, one of the challenges might be the grade. It looks like
Okay.
it looks like it slopes away from the road a little bit. There is a sidewalk on the other side of the street. I know that's not the same as having it on the same side.
Yeah.
There is not, let's see, trying to see if there's a crosswalk currently from the overflow parking where the sidewalk is.
No, I don't think so.
The crosswalks in
There's not.
front of the main parking.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that might be an easy one to say, look,
Strike the overflow.
no, there is a crosswalk right across from the overflow parking, the sidewalk. So, I mean, it's not a short distance, it's probably,
Oh.
probably a quarter mile, just looking at it. But, I think it's something that is existing there that we can work with as opposed to trying to create an entirely new parking area.
And there's, like halfway between the two, there's that access road.
That,
Would it be possible to expand that into a parking lot too?
um,
Not down by the water,
Possible.
but up by but up by Pleasant Street maybe.
That's the service road for
but
the,
it's an access road to the dams, so it's it's possible. I'm not saying it's
Just to
not
expand it,
possible,
you know.
but that typically is closed off
Mhm.
for service vehicles to get in there to be able to service the dams. It's also what Solitude Lake Management uses, so that's a highly utilized access. It doesn't seem like it. I know it's probably closed every time everybody drives by, but
Oh, I'm not saying open it, I'm just, if there's already a turnoff there, so if there's just a way to put a parking lot near there,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it probably slopes off
all
there too.
ideas are good ideas.
Yeah.
You probably make something down here for a few cars. But if you let a few cars in there, you're gonna have a lot of cars and they're not gonna do what you
Yes.
want.
And I'm sure, I do apologize to any residents that live across the street, but there is street parking on-street parkings across the street.
There's on-street parking there?
Apologize in advance, yes. Not on Pleasant, you have to go up, you have to go northwest. I'm not a townie yet, so I can't tell you what those streets
I
are.
was gonna say, I sure as heck wouldn't wanna park on Pleasant.
No, not Pleasant, it's not Pleasant, yeah.
On those
yes.
side streets?
Yes, on the side streets.
there's side streets on the opposite side too.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, you won't be popular with the neighborhood there.
I apologize in advance, so I.
So that, if you zoom out, that green line is the actual border of Delcart?
Yes.
Because I know when you park in the overflow parking lot and you go down, you know, the trail basically goes left. You can go right, but it says don't go right, because that's not part of the trail. But yet, should it be part of the, it looks like it is on this picture.
Right.
I just thought it was.
So
I mean, I've walked that stretch before.
I have too.
Is there a
You
sign
can't.
saying don't walk it?
I thought,
there isn't a sign. So the two signs that are there, there's actually two signs that are at that overflow parking lot location, and one of them shows the trail network. That may be an old map. The other one is a no littering sign. Those are the only two signs that are right there.
Yeah.
So you can go, and this is something that Natalie, these trail systems, Natalie just GPSed.
okay, so that's
She
all
went off
part of,
parcel, so there's that. There is a private trail.
Backyard there.
Yeah, that.
but all
probably
the
should
rest
not
of
have
it
been
inside
GPSed.
the green
Yes.
is part of our
Yep.
trail network. Okay,
Yep.
super.
Current trail network. Yep. So some other on the horizon Delcart things. We do have our biodiversity permit campaign, so that's closer toward the parking lot and playground area. So for those that are unaware, the Conservation Commission last year permitted for designated turtle nesting habitat at Delcart and 3 additional, well, 2.5, but 3 additional biodiversity areas. So it's all native plants, something's blooming every month of the year, and that is to support the 3 at-risk native bumblebee species. So it has pollen, nectar, host species, the full gambit of support for these beneficial insects.
Put that in.
What do you mean? Who put it in?
Yeah. The turtle nest, I mean, cleared the area, planted the species that you.
We did, yeah,
Oh,
DPW and
Okay, good.
conservation. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it was good.
We got any
We're-
turtles?
Well, not yet. As of Wednesday, it was supposed to be scarred. As of yesterday, I didn't see that it was scarred. So as long as it's scarred before May 1st and the turtles are moving, that's fine. And then May 6th is when the native nursery is open. So that's when I'll be making a very big purchase. Thank you, Conservation Commission, for all the plants.
That's great.
Yeah.
Rika, is there any space in that kind of bulletin board to put, you know, some materials on the biodiversity project? I think people would be interested to read about it if they're coming down.
The bullet. Oh, and yeah. Yes, that's actually a really good idea, Pat. Thanks.
Let's do it.
All right. So we could do that. And then Ryan, he's usually the leader of all the Eagle Scout projects. I know that recently we had Civi come in and he did the no littering signage. But I think historically, Ryan, there were bat boxes, some trail maintenance. I'm unaware of anything else.
Signage.
Additional signage, yeah. See, what else about Delcart? The dams are routinely maintained. We're actually we, the town, are due for another inspection of the dams, coincidentally by my previous employer. So it's a fun reunion. But they'll come down and look at the dams. The water levels are maintained, so it is altered for sure. There is a beaver at the northeast portion that keeps damming everything up, so Derek and I are all the time out there trying to figure out what to do.
Put a deceiver in.
Something, I don't know. If you go by, now actually there's a nesting pair of mute swans out there, yes, so they have a really nice bed in the cattails.
Some cameras are real cool.
Well, you approved 2 cameras actually
We did
with
already.
the biodiversity project. So those will be purchased and we can put those out. I still have to do I will take any information. I've never utilized solar cameras. So I'm trying to do some research to find which solar camera is the best to put out there and where to put it. Yeah. That's what I got for Delcart. To your point, Michael, I just wanted to let you know that the current trail map, you're right, it cuts off that right.
I thought it did.
Yeah. So that's a very unfortunate discrepancy between public information. So I can get that fixed.
And like, I don't know, we might need some bridges if, like you can see in the picture up there at the top. I don't know if you can get across the water there.
I would daylight,
I don't-
personally, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And the
It
sa-
would be my recommendation to daylight that trail, so to remove it.
Okay,
There is a dam, if you can call it a dam, it's dilapidated, it's broken, you're
Yeah.
right. So it's caved in, it's hard to get across. That's what Derek and I routinely, what is that, like javelin jump? Or not, that's a javelin throw, whatever.
Long jump.
Long jump, thank you.
Yeah.
Wasn't in sports, so, that's what we routinely cross, and it's very wet back there. To me, that is a very, very nice resource area.
yeah.
You know, as always, I'm just one person, so, if people want to access back there, that's totally fine, but
It's not on the trail map, I don't think, so I didn't even know it was an option.
it's not, actually, you're right, it's not.
And the same thing on the other end, you know, there's a break, there's a water break, you know, you can't get all the way,
Down there,
yeah.
I mean, it's
You
wet,
can't get all the way to the train tracks without getting wet, yeah.
yeah, it's wet.
Anyway, just something for us to
No, yeah,
think
those are
about.
good comments.
Rika, where did we land on accessibility at Delcart? I know we had looked at the parking space, the handicap parking space down the hill, and maybe possibly looking at the mats. I'm blanking on the name of them, my apologies, but the mats to maybe go down towards at least accessing the crushed gravel area.
Ryan's gonna answer
Yeah, Meg,
that
I'm
'cause
going
he's the
to,
ADA.
we're actually working on trying to get an accessibility study for all of our playgrounds, parks, and whatnot. One of the goals I think I'd like to see this commission focus on is to try to see if we can make at least one of the trails down there accessible. As you get over the dam on the left-hand side, there's a short loop, and it'd be great if we could somehow make that accessible for people with mobility issues. But yeah, long-term, I think, as a town, we need to do an accessibility study on all of our parks. So I'll let you know about that.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, we've been talking with Jamie about that, and it's something that we're going to probably have to bid out, but we're meeting with a firm next week to get some, preliminary estimates.
That's a great idea, because that's where they have the storyboards with the
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, I mean, and this is not the same as ADA accessibility, but even getting a stroller through that gap, I think is pretty difficult, if you've got one of the Bob strollers or anything. So I think, given that the story walk is over there, and I think that's a great spot, but if you can't get a stroller through, that makes it tricky.
Would you opt, out of curiosity, so that trail, and I'm speaking purely from a wetland scientist standpoint, that trail that hugs the water, that's really close, and it's just really, really close. So would you keep the trails as is for accessibility? Would you choose one or the other? Or would you cut the middle and create a new trail? And you don't have to have an answer, you just ruminate on it, I'm just curious.
Isn't that trail by the shoreline, it's a little wet.
It's really close.
It's also.
It's
there's
not a good
ton
spot.
And it's,
Roots and
The
stuff.
roots,
growing
yeah,
up.
you can see
It's
the
very
caverns
difficult to
under-
walk
yes,
on.
yes.
Let alone, you really have to, you destroy a lot of vegetation
You do.
making a new
Yes,
trail
you do.
there.
and there's also, you could just keep on going by the shoreline, and it takes you right to the dock that doesn't have an official trail to it. There's just
Yeah.
a dock sitting there.
Yes.
So we might, if we do remove the trail, we're gonna need to put signage up saying, too close to the water, sorry, or something like that.
I'd probably want to replant it too.
Yeah,
I don't think you want to close it without giving them an alternative that's,
right,
you're not going to make them go out through
right.
East Overbush over there.
It's nice back there.
really is,
Well, it
yeah.
may be nice, but it may not be the way you want to
No,
go.
I know.
Just
'Cause
something to
they're-
think about.
All up in here, everybody just kind of takes off and goes their own way,
They
and
do,
it's very well beaten down and
yes.
tons of roots sticking up out of the ground.
The trail braiding is extensive in that area.
Looks like it's a bicycle back there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a little bit treacherous. There's this one, you sort of just can't get down without slipping
Oh.
and sliding.
That actually reminds me, 2 comments. The boat launch, kayak launch has been fixed. So that did happen since the last time we spoke about Delcart. And then second, about the treacherous, I think they're leftover spoil piles personally from the MBTA, but all those hills, I think that's excavated. But
You're gonna try to get them to take them away.
I can't get them to take
Good
their
luck with that.
silt fence away from their culvert, so trust me, I've tried. You could install stairs. I was at the golf course the other day for an unrelated project, and they have stairs up in their hill, just nestled in there, right? Just pieces of granite or block or whatever. And I thought that would be a really nice.
Eagle Scout project.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that dock over that's a kayak launch?
At the main trailhead at the parking lot, not the
Oh.
one that's across the buoy
There's
there.
one over.
Yeah, no,
There's
that's
some
just
floats
a,
over there.
That's just a. I see people sitting there. Sometimes I see a chair just show up and it's left, and then
What
it's
are
gone.
they? We just inherited them, or are they just?
The docks?
Mhm.
Ryan, the dock, not the boardwalk, because the boardwalk,
That's
yeah,
it,
we
right
maintain.
there. You
The
need that.
the dock that's next to the boardwalk, for lack of a better
Yeah, it's
orientation.
over here somewhere. Maybe it's right
Did you install that? Did the town, we install that? Okay.
2015, we did the playground and marked all the trails. FWM docks out of Hudson, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Provided all the canoe, kayak
Nice.
launch. There's a small dock on the southern side here,
Yep.
and then the boardwalk as well. And I actually emailed them after you and I talked. I emailed them yesterday to see if we get a site visit so they can
Okay.
re-secure the canoe kayak launch and replace all the rope on the boardwalk.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it looks like they're missing some rope on the bottom where kids could possibly fall in, so we gotta get that fixed.
Yes. That's another thing we're fixing.
So we're gonna do trail maintenance. Who physically executes that?
DPW
DPW?
with after sending an email to the conservation agent. Yeah, or Eagle Scouts, or volunteer groups. I know Pat and we were talking about having a friends group, but if it is a friends group, it can't be a legally recognized friends group. They can't fundraise. They can't take in money if they are volunteering for the town. But if somebody that has a nonprofit or has their own thing, their own organization, then they could just volunteer and just get approval. Yes, but generally, right now, it's maintenance of the trails comes from residents writing in either to myself, to Ryan. A lot of people write to Ryan, or DPW, and then inevitably all three of us end up talking, and DPW is the one that does the work.
Okay.
So.
I mean, it definitely sounds like, just going back to a point that Ryan made, that if it's possible to do an accessibility study, looking at, what makes sense, and maybe to kind of marry that with the forestry plan, and, I think trying to look at what are the different options in terms of enhancing existing trails, creating new trails. I think it would be worthwhile just seeing what all the options are and making a decision based on that. I know that's a little ways down the road, but I think that seems like maybe the best approach.
I think so. And then we can also identify where we can receive funding, especially under the forest stewardship plan.
We're coming up on the hour, but any other comments or kind of closing remarks that folks have?
Hi, I'm Marion Szymanski. I live at 529 Pleasant Street, which abuts the Delcart property. My husband and I are also beekeepers. We have 11 of our hives are kept on in our backyard on that property. And we see our bees all the time down at Delcart. We see them on the clethra, on the goldenrod, and some of the wildflowers. But we also see them in the water. We see them on the getting water for themselves, but also the lilies, the
the American water lilies, like the white ones?
Last year, especially during the drought, that was a huge source of nectar and pollen for our bees because all the others dried up in the gardens and the areas around us. And so I'm a little concerned about some of the treatments that you're doing on the water. Also the loosestrife. I know a lot of people don't like loosestrife, but honeybees love loosestrife. And it's a big source of food for them as well. And I'm just concerned that some of the treatments might be used when these plants are flowering. I'm just concerned about the health of our bees, really. So I thought maybe you could answer some questions about that.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a few different answers. One, clethra honey is the best honey.
Absolutely.
Two, oh, I had it and I lost it. So, obviously, as you know, I only started a year ago. So, when I first started, was actually the first hearing that this treatment, the contract, which is year by year, by the way, came up. It went through. Now that the contract is due again, and we've had visible success with the eradication of the invasive plants, and this is way ahead of any permit filing, I plan to do a deeper dive into those herbicides. I do know that those that are treating, they are certified. Take that for what you will, right? It's supposed to read the label. Let's hope they do. Let's hope they're not spraying in the rain when it's super windy, you know. To that point, there's one other comment that I wanted to make. Oh, it was about your loosestrife. I don't know if you saw recently, but Mass put out a publication that they are accepting loosestrife. Now it's still considered invasive and obviously non-native, but they have changed their metrics for monitoring that as long as it's not the dominant plant in the ecosystem, it's okay to leave it. It's acceptable for ecosystem restoration or general ecological health to leave it. So I wanted to let you know that as well. Delcart is not being treated for the loosestrife. So it's only for the water chestnut and milfoil. I do know, and this is going to be unsettling, but I do know that some of those herbicides can impact American water lilies. So they generally tend to attack any plant that has that structure. So.
Do you know what the chemicals are?
I can find that out, yeah. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's all public information, and I can definitely follow up with you and let you know.
Do they check to see if they are safe for
They do.
bees?
Yeah, well, yes. So they have been including SDX sheets as well. And then additionally, they go out routinely twice a year to sample. Again, they focus right on the aquatic ecosystem, so they don't go up into the upland and test the insects, but for the aquatic system, it's been maintained within normal parameters and levels. Maybe not the best answer, but there's a few answers in there. But I'll follow up with you.
Yeah, hi, Eric Stelzer, 7 Mercer Lane. I actually had a similar question because as you were talking about the forester and their input, I heard that they drew attention to the stormwater management at that site. And so I was just thinking if there's other options that the town's looking at to consider stormwater mitigation methods that might minimize the chemicals that might need to be used at the facility, on the ponds as well.
Sure, you mean for like non-point pollution source, surficial runoff?
Exactly,
Nutrient
like,
loading?
yeah, especially thinking about climate change and all the storms, severity of the storms that are gonna
Yeah.
come, and knowing that retention ponds that might be able to put in there with natural vegetation might be able to absorb some of those nutrients to avoid them from going into the aquatic environment.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good comment. You can come on in, Jeff.
It's not 7?
It's,
You guys changed the time?
open space starts at 6. Conservation Commission
Okay.
meeting still starts at 7.
Okay,
We
okay.
didn't change it in the 2 months you were gone. Sorry.
I think did something happen?
Okay,
Time for one more comment.
go for it.
Hi, I'm Mark Cohen, 36 Pearl Street. So I like to fish for largemouth bass at the Delcart Ponds. And when I hear water chestnuts, I recall going on canoes on the Charles River, spending 8 hours with this whole voluntary crew. And that stuff just grows right back. It was unbelievable how thick those are and how strong they are to pull them all the way from the sea, the root, and get them out. And I went back there. This was the Waltham Coves, off of, where the Sheraton Hotel, the Marriott, in Waltham. And I went back there last year, and it looked like we hadn't done anything. And it was only 5 years later. So that gets me a little worried if is that becoming an issue with the water chestnuts in terms of fishing and having open water for that type of sport?
That's a good comment. So in the SNEP region, so this, which I'm sure you know, so southern New England, EPA region, right, SNEP. Anyways, water chestnut is becoming a really big problem in the Blackstone watershed, which South Franklin is a part of. So we're actually shared between Charles River and Blackstone. And the Blackstone watershed has been putting out a lot of education material, outreach, they're not marketing water chestnut, but they're putting that information out there to get volunteer groups like that. So they recently had an event on the Blackstone River for hand pulling. I thought it was a super neat idea. I'd love to do something like that here, but I don't know if I would suggest it if we're already treating. And we don't have a nice fancy kayak rental set up at Delcart, and there's liability issues, or maybe not issues, but liability concerns that I'd have to suss out with Mark Sorrell. So that's something that I had thought of, but to Mark Cohen's point and to my comment earlier, those seeds will cease for 12 years. So unless you're continuously you're continuously removing those plants, and you're making sure you pull them before they seed, it's fruitless, no pun intended. So,
Good point.
yeah. So, anyways.
Right, I know, every year when the contract comes up and we're talking through what's the right approach for treatment of Delcart, I think there's no right answer. I think it's a complicated question on whether to continue treating or the same regimen of treating and what the right approach is. I do think, every year we've been doing this, we have a little bit more data to work with. So that's certainly helpful too. But it takes time to marinate and make sure, is it working how it's supposed to be working, or is there a better method and whatnot.
Do you want to make final announcements, Pat?
Sure. Thanks everyone for joining us. A couple of things to note. First, and I think most importantly, again, just to reiterate that we need your input. If you're watching this, this plan is not about us. We're kind of we're reporting out from what we hear back from all of you. So anyone who's tuning in or listening, we would very much appreciate if you can respond to the survey that went out initially a couple of months back, and that's still open and will be open through the end of April. We'd love to get some more responses on that survey. Again, if you go to franklinma.gov/conservation, click on the link to the open space and recreation plan. You can respond to the survey, submit comments, see all of our information that's been posted. But the survey responses are really critical in informing how this plan update is going to be framed. And so I think right now we've gotten a little under 500 responses. Every additional response and all of that feedback is really impactful. So please, if you were able to, go online and submit the survey. It should take you about 10 or 15 minutes, and that's time well spent. We also have a couple of upcoming events to note. 2 weeks from now, we will have a further kind of stakeholder group session on the OSRP. Brika, what's the topic for the 20th?
Forests, trees, green space, and other conservation lands.
Okay, so in many ways will be a continuation of some of the topics that we've had on the past few weeks. And then I think, is it the 25th that we have our next public hearing? Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay, so on Tuesday, the 25th, we'll have our second of 3 public hearings. That one is oriented more toward getting public feedback and comment. That will be focused on the goals of the 2023 Open Space and Recreation Plan update. So we would very much encourage you to participate, to join us. That will be at the Franklin Senior Center. And that's blanking on the time. Is that at 6 o'clock? 6 to 8 on Tuesday, the 25th?
Yep.
So 6 to 8, Tuesday, the 25th at the Franklin Senior Center. Hope to see you there, and on Zoom as well. Anything I'm missing?
The senior center workshop.
That's right. We have a workshop also on the Open Space and Recreation Plan on Wednesday, the 19th. That'll be from 10:30 in the morning to 12:30. Again, that's a good opportunity to kind of roll up our sleeves, talk through the plan, and I think that is the general public is welcome to attend that.
And hard copy surveys will be available for, yes.
I think that's all, but thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And in just a few minutes, we will rotate over to our normal ComCom meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ever.
Praise himself. So one of the greatest things for us to do is to praise God.